Hello, good afternoon, everyone. You are welcome to this month's 7th edition of our monthly seminars. It's an interesting topic that we have for this month. Harnessing the quality of life in families with adolescents. This is the 7th one. The previous one, the 6th one, we looked at breaking the stigma in the workplace. And at that seminar, we realized that there were a few issues of stigma and discrimination in the workplace. Most importantly, we had the Human Resource Director for Human Rights to join us from scratch. And at that meeting, she made us very aware that they now have a system, stigma and discrimination reporting system online, so that if you observe any human rights or stigma, discrimination going on in any institution, you could lodge a complaint to them and they would make an investigation into the matter and try to address it. It also became clear that EAP was needed in almost every organization. Mental Health Authority is working around the clock to get that done. For this seminar, an interesting topic that I didn't mention, let me give you a few background to that, this topic that we formulated for this one. On Suicide Day, World Suicide Day, 10th September, we went to Accra Girls Senior High School, and we did an awareness program, and there was a psychological first aid clinic too as well. We had some fantastic clinical psychologists who joined us to provide that for the students. And at this program, it became clear that our adolescents, siblings, children, nephews, and nephews, they are nieces, well, they are all nieces. We neglect them some way, somehow, and they are confronted with a lot of issues. And for that matter, this topic became necessary for us to help and provide ourselves with information that can help us take care of our adolescents in the system. Before I go on, let me quickly state some few housekeeping rules. The first one is to try, if you join us, you keep your microphones off. Again, we might be discussing issues that are sensitive. So when you are given the opportunity to make a comment, ask a question, I'll plead with you to be as sensitive as you can be. So at the end of the day, I'll be sharing some helplines with you. I'm pretty sure that our Deputy Chief Executive in the person of Dr. Caroline Emisa is part of us today. I would let her welcome you to this program and we can proceed. Dr. Emisa, please, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Arthur. I can hear you. I was trying to unmute, I couldn't, but I think I've been unmuted now. Thank you.
Good.
So good afternoon to all of us.
Good
and
afternoon.
welcome to, is it the 7th in the series of our seminars?
That's right, 7th.
Okay. Yes, so you would agree with me that we've been discussing a whole lot of issues since we started these seminars, just to create awareness and inform the public about mental health issues. Today, we are going to talk about adolescents. I'm sure people will be wondering where that or how we are connected with adolescents as mental health professionals. But you will agree with me that mental health issues start as early as 10 to 12 years. In fact, the 10 to 29 year range is a very important age range for developing or being able to identify persons who are developing mental health issues. So you would realize that by the time we are done with this, you would see the importance or the significance of knowing our 10 to 19-year-olds who are considered as adolescents. So WHO has defined adolescents as persons between the ages of 10 and 19 years. And around this age range, like I said, they experience a lot of changes, physical, cognitive, social changes. So people are moving into puberty and all that, and they are forced to behave in various ways, different ways. Research has also suggested that there happens to be a developmental mismatch around this period where we have our adolescents, such that parts of the brain which are responsible for sensation seeking develop before parts which are responsible for logic reasoning. So you probably will act before you even think about your action. And as such, adolescents are able to take more risks that make them feel good. So they are trying to outdo each other in doing so many things, running, eating, anything, silly thing you can think of, call it that. I'm sure as parents or adults, sometimes we find some of these things, but it makes them feel good. I mean, at that age, what do you care about? And sometimes it becomes difficult as adults or parents to be able to understand them. You will also agree with me that at this age, they are very volatile and they are vulnerable as well. So they are prone to all the vices, etc., that you can name. Their friends introduce them to all sorts of things, and they are eager to try them out, ignorant of the outcomes or the aftermath of some of these behaviors or attitudes. And I mean, agreeably so, because I mean, if you can't, your parts of your brain are not yet developed to help you to be judgmental and be thinking about consequences and all that. Of course, you go with the ones that your system allows you to. Also at this age, we realize that they become a bit rebellious. And in our part of the world, we say they are rude. And sometimes this results in conflict in our homes, etc. So there are a lot of things surrounding adolescents. I haven't come to the reproductive aspects of their growing up. So sex talk in our part of the world, it's a dilemma. Parents are not able to have sex education with their children because they are not sure about the age to start and all that. But whether you start it or not, they get to that stage, they are in their puberty, they start having these hormones coming, they don't know what to do with it, and they learn. Now to that, we are exposed to the internet and the web and all that. They are exposed to a whole lot of things. A lot of them are unapproved, or they end up being derogatory information about their developments, and they are forced to try out some of these things. The consequence of some of all these things I have mentioned is they go into drug abuse or substance use, they become delinquent, they may go into cyber fraud, and then talk about our good old teenage pregnancy. It's still with us. It's still very, very rife with us. The data or evidence tells us that there are about 14% of girls under 19 becoming pregnant in their teenage. And this is a huge problem. I'm sure any of us or one of us may know somebody whose daughter or child has gone through this phase. Maybe a young boy having gone to impregnate a friend because they were experimenting and all that. And in just last year, we had almost about 110,000 teenage pregnancies in the country recorded. I think it's a huge number. And I mean, we really need to do something about it as a country. So for me, all these things that go on with children around this age tell us that there's a need to support adolescents or developing adolescents by providing a close relationship with them and allowing them to be able to learn positive behaviors and model as such. So considering all that, we thought that if there's a role to play in their mental health, in their behavioral patterns of adolescents, which may be lacking due to ignorance or people not knowing how to manage or handle some of these adolescents or teenagers at that stage, and it results in a lot of family conflicts, etc. Why not? We could also look at harnessing the quality of life in families who have adolescents. So I believe that it is very apt at this point to be discussing this issue. And what we really want to look at, our objective here is to raise public awareness about the adolescent growth and behavioral patterns, and also how they can impact on their families, such growth patterns, etc., behaviors, and also be able to provide participants with strategies on how to deal with these adolescents and maintain a good quality of life for our families, because sometimes they can be a real problem. You can imagine somebody who is addicted to a substance as early as 15 years, 16, 17 years. It's difficult to probably get them to reason with you to understand that that is not the best way to go and all that. But we also need to understand them. And this is a point at which sometimes as parents, we don't do too well. So I believe that our discussions this afternoon, Dr. Atta, we have some seasoned psychologists with us who will help us with children behaviors, how they behave, why they behave the way they behave, and then how we can support them to be able to model them into becoming adults with positive attitudes and all that. So we'll be looking at this as part of our discussions this afternoon. I won't talk much, but I'll urge us all and treat us all to listen attentively, contribute to the discussion such that at the end of it, we would all have learned something that will guide us in supporting families wherever we find ourselves. Thank you very much, Dr. Atta.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Misa, for that short welcome address in quotes. But that was quite insightful anyway. Yes, we have some seasoned clinical psychologists with us to help us with this discussion. But before we go on, let me acknowledge the psychologists that we went to Accra Girls with. They did a fantastic job, and I want us to applaud them. We have Dr. May Cullen Roth, Caesar, Dr. Jonathan Odami, he is joining us here. Miss Hannah Aboyinga, Miss Gloria Aka, she is also joining us today. And Miss Akufo, Miss Enyonam Nugbemadu, Priscilla Ose, an intern, and Sheila Lugayari, she's also an intern. These folks join us at Accra Girls, and I must tell you, they did a wonderful job there. So I would clap for them. It's as a result of what they did that we have this follow-up, and we feel that we should also engage with you and provide some sort of knowledge out here. Looking at the topic we have at hand, harnessing quality of life, we have adolescents in there, and so one of the psychologists will look at adolescents, one will look at quality of life, and the other will look at family. Ms. Gloria Aka is a clinical psychologist. She'll be looking at quality of life within the families. She is also a child development specialist with the Trust Hospital and Family Heaven. Married for 8 years with 3 children, with over 4 years experience of working with young people and children with special needs. She'll be dealing with the topic, quality of life within the families. Ladies and gentlemen, let me present to you Ms. Gloria Aka to do her presentation. Ms. Aka, are you there? Hello, Ms. Gloria Aka. Are you pleased with us? She told me earlier on that she had network issues, so I was going to even do this presentation without the video.
I was unable to unmute myself.
Oh, that is technology. Okay, now I can hear you well. Are you ready now?
Yes, please.
Please go ahead. You have 15 minutes to do your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. and good afternoon, everyone. So I'm presenting on the topic quality of life within the family. Quality of life is a term that had been around for some time now and has been used greatly in the field of philosophy and in medicine. So in the field of medicine, clinicians use it as a parameter for making decisions in healthcare. But over the years, it has become a catchword in almost every field of study. And normally it's used to denote a good life, happiness, and satisfaction. So today, I would want us to have a look at what quality of life means. Then we can get down into what it is within the family. According to the WHO, quality of life is defined as an individual's perception of their position in life in the context of the culture and value system in which they live, and in relation to their goals, expectations, standards, and concerns. Recently, quality of life researchers have also coined a newer definition of the term quality of life. And they say that quality of life is the extent to which a person enjoys a good life by achieving a balance in their relations with themselves and with others through creating and sustaining adequate conditions and own potentials over the life course. So this definition gives us an understanding that the word quality of life is just to denote a good life, a life that is being enjoyed, a life that the individual feels satisfied with. So quality of life is subjective in a way because it depends on a person's own decision to tell what is quality of life to him or not. So it includes multiple aspects of a person's life, such as health, material comforts, personal safety, relationships, learning, creative expressions, socializing, the opportunity to help and encourage others, and then participation in public affairs. According to the researchers of quality of life, the term can denote a set of qualities of life. The term quality of life can also be used to denote a set of qualities of life. So they have identified 4 qualities of life, 2 of which are external and the other 2 are internal. So they say the first quality of life is livability of the environment. So this is to say how safe your environment is for living. In terms of public health, we would say how sane the environment is. The second quality of life they talked about is life ability of a person. So this is to say how well a person is equipped to cope with the problems of life. So a good quality of life is seen to be mind and body working together. So if the mind and the body are in disunity with each other, there is an indication that the quality of life is not good. Then the third one is utility of life. That is, what is a person's life good for? So it is to say that living life is not just for yourself, but also for other people. So if you're living a good life, you must be good for something that is other than yourself. And the last of all is enjoyment of life. This is the quality of life in the eye of the beholder. It is a person's subjective appreciation of their own life. In other words, we can say that is life satisfaction. So this is what quality of life has been denoted to be. Quality of life can be achieved by individuals and also collectively by a social group or a family. So this now brings us to our topic of emphasis, quality of life within the family. So let's look at what it means to say quality of life within the family. So quality of life within the family, which is normally termed family quality of life, is concerned with the degree to which individuals experience their own quality of life within the family context, as well as with how the family as a whole has opportunities to pursue its important possibilities and also achieve goals in the community and the society of which it is part of. In other words, family quality of life is the family unit and the degree to which this unit functions so that the family members can enjoy their lives together, and also individual family members are supported in pursuing their own lives. Over here, the family is those who are in close day-to-day contact with each other, and they themselves perceive themselves to be a family unit. It is also the fundamental unit of social order. So emphasis is not on the kind of family we have, whether it is a single mother, a man with children alone without their mother, or whether it is the two parents together or whatever. Family is those who are in close day-to-day contact with each other and perceive themselves to be a family unit. So in discussing family quality of life, the focus is on family life on a whole, as well as the main areas of life activity that are important to the functioning of the families. Although it may also refer to the overall pattern of interactions among the various main areas of the family. So family quality of life, in this sense, it's concerned with examining how quality of life is experienced within the various family units where people live. Okay, at this point, so we have talked about what a family quality of life is, but what are the determinants? What are the things we measure? What are the things we look at to be able to tell that this family quality of life is good? So this, in other words, are the domains of identifying, measuring family quality of life. The first is family interaction. Second is parenting. The third is emotional well-being. Fourth is physical and material well-being. And then the last is support, the kind of support the family receives or gives. So I want us to answer a few questions, and these questions are just necessary for us to answer. So what makes family life effective, successful, enjoyable, or fulfilling? What can make a family, any family, my family, your family, families in Ghana, effective, successful, enjoyable, or fulfilling? So to answer this, I say a family can be identified as successful by the characteristics of the individual members. So if the individual members in the family are not showing characteristics that tell that they are successful, we cannot say that the family on its own is successful. It can also be identified, or successful, enjoyable, fulfilling families can be known by the characteristics of the family interactions they have. Mother with children, mother with father, parents with children, the kind of interactions that go on between them. or by the extent to which it fulfills certain functions considered to be the responsibility of the family in the culture or their value social context. So in Africa, in Ghana, what are the responsibilities that we know families have? So if the family is able to function well and fulfill those responsibilities, we can say that that family is successful and effective. How do we know when these things have been achieved? When the family is effective, when the family is successful, when the family is enjoyable, and when the family is fulfilling? We would, we would see it in the lives of the individual members, and then we would see that the family is flourishing. Whose perspectives in the family should we listen to? So it has always been like in the family, the parents or the major caregivers are the ones in charge. And in everything, they are the ones that speak for the family. But here we want to say that it used to be them, but now attention is being given to the perspective of children and other family members. So if you have your family and you can interpret or tell that your family quality of life is good, it might not just be so until we have heard from the children and the other members of the family. How can a family improve their quality of life? That's another question. And that can be done by improving the individual domains of family quality of life. The last question I want to ask here is, what would be the implications of improving the quality of life of a family for young people? So when a family has its quality of life intact, good, satisfactory, what it helps the young people to achieve is that they are more confident, they are more socially adjusted, and overall they are happier. Looking at a few factors that can affect family quality of life as I conclude, family interaction, family relationships, this contributes strongly to perceived family quality of life. To some lesser degrees, we know about health of the members of the family, career, leisure are also important to the family's quality of life. Other factors that appear to contribute to lower family quality of life, and in these times, as far as research in quality of life is concerned, there had not been so much done in these areas, but this will be areas that we would need to look at as far as the family is concerned, is in the area of family income, including poverty, lack of people who can listen to the challenges of the people within the family and help solve the challenges arising as well. A lack of adequate respite that suits the family circumstances. Also, a restriction on family inclusion at home, a restriction on opportunities for employment, professional growth, and a restriction on opportunities to study. So far as these things abound in a family, it is going to contribute to a lower family quality of life. And lastly, quality of life in a family appears to be affected by the age of the family members as well. And also the stage and then the style of parenting. So in younger families where parents are younger, they tend to face much more challenges, especially if their children have issues of disability or any other issues during childhood or adolescence. But when the parents are older, it appears to bring about a higher family quality of life. So, to conclude, family quality of life is very important because everybody belongs to a family. And for individuals to have their own quality of life, they should be able to get it out from the family. So for every family, we are tasked with this duty of being able to ensure that our members are properly taken care of so that they can achieve their qualities of life. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Gloria, for that brief and concise presentation. I mean, we have a better understanding of what quality of life is. In the family, we are talking about happiness, satisfaction, enjoying life, being able to help one another, being in a good relationship with oneself and others, all contribute to family quality of life. For me, the most important thing is the determinants of how the quality of life can be measured and can be sustained in the family. That is how the family members interact with each other, the sort of parenting within the family, the emotional well-being of the members of the family, as well as the support within the family and how it can be improved and what lower quality means and what causes all that. These are good key areas that we need to look at. I think that May would, she's asked me not to call her doctor, so I'm using the word May. May would be the second person to do a presentation, and she'll be talking about the impact of neglect on adolescents' quality of life. If we neglect these adolescents, how does it impact on them? And who is May? Miss May Cullen Wolf Caesar. She's a clinical psychologist with specialization in clinical psychology, licensed and registered by the Ghana Psychology Council and the Association. She has been in private practice for over 10 years and has considerable organizational teaching and consulting experience. She is the director and founder of Epilens Counseling Services, a service that provides therapy and psychological support for individuals in distress. She's also the CEO of Epi Consults and Organization Development that carries out evaluations, training and interventions to increase productivity and efficiency for organizations. You can find her at Sakumono. She is also the consultant psychologist for EcoBank and Tema Parents Association School, also a proprietress educationist for Teddy Bears Playhouse and Nursery School in Tema. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. May Cullen Wolf Caesar, she'll be talking about the impact of neglect on adolescents' quality of life. Ms. May, you have the floor.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you for honoring my request. Yes, I want to take up from where my colleague left off, quality of life, and focus on adolescents. This is because adolescents eventually become adults. So we're looking at the impact of neglect on adolescents' quality of life. I would like us to look at a few definitions. Dr. Misa pointed out that it was, according to the WHO, it's the time between 10 and 19. But lately, researchers have come up with this new theory, this concept that it actually extends beyond that time simply because of biological maturation and cognitive development, and also because some adolescents take up roles that are traditionally for adults. Now, this time, this period of adolescence is a period of turbulence. This is the time we have disturbances of the self, identity questions, who am I, where am I going to? And of course, if not addressed, the adolescents get involved in all kinds of quests to find out who they are. So it is necessary that we focus on adolescents. It's also the time when the support from parents is crucial, because if it's not there, if the support is not there, then peers may take up that responsibility. So we're looking at adolescents because of what we found when we went to the school for the mental health day. Again, quality of life, my colleague has already told us everything about quality of life and what it is. It's a subjective feeling of being in control. It also involves one's autonomy and choice to make decisions. It also includes the image, the self-image that the individual has. If it's a good one, then the chances are quality of life will be good. It also involves a sense of belonging, relatedness with other people, and therefore encourages the engagement in activities that are left or in the domain of young people. Here we find feelings of hope and optimism that increase the quality of life. We're also looking at neglect. According to Professor Marshall et al., isolated incidents, as well as a pattern of failure over time by parents or other family members or caregivers during this developmental stage, this transition from childhood to adulthood, where the parent or caregiver is in a position to do so, but is not, is termed neglect. And if unheeded, it can lead to severe emotional disturbances. So now we know who an adolescent is, what adolescence is, what QOL is, or quality of life is, and then what neglect also is. We want to look at the impact of neglect. First and foremost, adolescents are at this point in their lives becoming aware of who they are. So their self-perception is being formed here. So if there is any hint of neglect, that adolescent, that child may start to feel that they do not have what it takes, that they are inadequate in many areas. And this can lead to mental and emotional health problems. We also have academic performance taking a hit when there is neglect, low performance. And then we have problems with relationships, whether with siblings, with other members of the community, even in romantic relationships, we have some issues. Of course, once there are issues with maintaining relationships, it might become difficult to take up social roles in the community. Before I move on to coping strategies, I just want to focus a little bit on the mental and emotional health problems. As mental health professionals, we recognize that personality disorders and other mood disorders start from early adulthood or even in childhood. Dr. Emerson pointed out that between the ages of 10 and 12, some children have been diagnosed with emotional and mental health problems. For instance, the DSM, our Bible, always talks about the onsets of personality disorders, and usually says starting from late adolescence, middle adolescence, or early adolescence. So it shows how important that period is for us to nip in the bud any problems that we see arising. Borderline personality disorder, for instance, has a plethora of effects. For instance, relationship issues, self-image issues, risky behaviors, impulsive behaviors that affect them in all areas of life, impair functioning occupationally, socially, interpersonally, and even in the academic area. Now, borderline personality, we have realized, is usually as a result of poor relationships at home, poor quality of life, absent caregivers, parents not giving their children enough attention. We are talking about quality of life. We're talking about a family unit. We're talking about parenting. This is the time where neglect can affect the growing adult. Neglect also, we usually think is something that occurs in poverty-stricken homes. We know that the parents go out to work, and so the children do not get as much attention as they should, or even they are sent out to fend for themselves. But research has also shown it cuts across several socio-economic strata. So we can actually have neglect occurring in families with very high incomes. We know about parents who leave their children in front of TVs to entertain themselves. We know parents would send their children far away with the hope or the idea that they can take care of themselves. They need to grow. But this all falls under the umbrella of neglect, simply because the parental guidance necessary to blossom into an adult is crucial at this stage. So if the child is not receiving the emotional support, instrumental support, or even the informational support in terms of sex education and how to live with other people in a community, that child transitioning into adulthood may develop these personality disorders that have to do with feelings of abandonment, feelings of low self-image that would propel them into very dangerous and risky behaviors. So that is why we need to focus on the adolescents and the impact of not having enough support, especially parental support. I mentioned also that academic performance is affected when there is neglect. We know that in our part of the world, in Ghana, we have the secondary year, the senior high education, the children go off to school, and because of lack of residences, many of them are in hostels and trying to look after themselves. Of course, it creates autonomy, as I mentioned earlier. It also fosters this feeling of relatedness where they make friends who are on the same journey. But then there is the problem of, if left unattended, there is the tendency to develop very poor coping strategies and also to adopt very negative behaviors from peers. We talk a lot about peer pressure. Peer pressure can be good in a way when you are a member of a group that loves to study. But if you're not fortunate and you fall into one that is involved in all kinds of maladaptive practices, then there's the likelihood that your life is not going to turn out well. And therefore your quality of life is going to be much, much lower than you would like. This therefore affects the relationships they get into. Dr. Emerson talked about teenage pregnancy and substance abuse. Yes, you usually get the two occurring. And it's because there is usually very little parental guidance or parental support in children who have been neglected. Social roles, therefore, are compromised. These young adolescents will grow up and not know how to bring up their kids. A few with some direction from schools and religious bodies may find their way and become good parents, but the likelihood is this will continue in a cycle. So we recognize now that we can't talk about quality of life in a family without talking about how the family unit, whether it's disintegrating or whether it's remaining whole, can affect an adolescent or impact on adolescents' emotional health, and by extension, their quality of life. So we are looking at ways of harnessing quality of life very early on, so that there will indeed be quality of life, which includes sound mental and emotional health. Young people who find that they have been neglected in some way adopt some coping strategies. I mentioned earlier that some of these coping strategies can be quite maladaptive. They can take up substance abuse or engage in risky sexual behaviors in order to fill the void, emotional void, or to acquire things that they see other people having. Studies have shown that young adults who did not have the parental support or who were neglected during the adolescent years have the tendency to be envious of what other people have. And therefore they may engage in robberies, they engage in behaviors that are definitely socially unacceptable. So it is important again here to understand that neglect is not just about money. It's all about being there for the child so that the child does not feel that they have been abandoned and therefore seek ways of filling that void of being abandoned. My colleague also mentioned that there is quality of life within a family that is perhaps a single parent family or one that has been broken up by divorce or death. In such instances, neglect may be inevitable, but then it behoves the society, the community, and especially those of us in the mental health professions to recognize the impact. Where there is a loss of any kind, whether it's instrumental or emotional, there is that tendency to fill in with whatever is available. I mentioned that some young people may, as a result of the neglect, pick up very good coping behaviors, but the majority do not. And this is where we come in order to create avenues for them to learn better coping strategies, just in case they meet with neglect. So we want to look at the coping strategies that most adolescents use, especially when they find that they do not have the support they need. Some engage in problem-focused coping and others emotion-focused. When we went to visit the schools, it was apparent that quite a number of girls felt some form of neglect. It was perhaps because quite a number of them had also gone into school without their parents having the necessary financial support or the monetary support to give them. And therefore, once in school, they had been left to their own devices. Some of these girls admitted to not wanting to mix with others who, was obvious, had more than they needed. This is how they perceived it. Others also admitted that they preferred to do something that the teachers would notice and therefore reward them, whether tangibly or intangibly. This also points to that need for support, whether from the family or from the community. So we also have to look very carefully at the kind of social support that we are providing. With the emotion focus, for instance, the downside of emotion focused coping, especially with the social withdrawal, we recognize that some students had suicidal ideation. These things may not come up once they go back home, but nevertheless, it was there. So we are looking at ways in which we can help the students who would like to engage in emotion-focused coping to use more adaptive ones. I would like to recommend that we visit schools more often in order to help these students do that. Both strategies can also be used together, problem-focused and emotion-focused. Problem-focused, we make it possible for them to engage in activities that increase their self-esteem, give them better self-perception, and also help them to create bonds or social networks that will help fill the void that parental neglect has created. So with this, I would like to move on and let my colleague take up the roles of the entire family and the community in harnessing quality of life for the family and adolescents. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, May. That was that was wonderful. I mean, to know that if you are able to do and you are not doing it, our adolescents may see it as neglect. We'll talk about that later when we get to the question time. At this point, if you have any comments or question, you can drop it in the chat box and I will read them. I have seen one here. Let me see what, oh, there is one question, so I'll read that one later on. Well, May mentioned about the impact, the negative impact of neglect. Neglect does not bring any positive thing. It brings negative stuff where the children have emotional and mental health problems. They are not able to develop well when it comes to self-esteem. They have problems with relationship and social rules and all that. So, I mean, if we cannot neglect them. It's hard not to, but we cannot. So what are we going to do? Dr. Jonathan Odami will talk to us about the psychosocial care and support for adolescents in our families. And he is also a licensed clinical psychologist and a lecturer at the University of Ghana. He was a former head of the clinical psychology department at the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital. He is a fellow of Singapore Civil Aviation Authority in Singapore, a fellow of the Faculty of Nursing at the University of Chiang Mai in Thailand, and a fellow of VVGRI National Labour Institute in India. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Dr. Jonathan Odami to give us a presentation on psychosocial care and support for adolescents in our families. If you have any question or comment, you can drop it in the chat box and I would attend to it in due course. Dr. Odami.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amankwa Atta, for the opportunity this afternoon. And I'd like to welcome all of us to today's virtual seminar. So I want to share my slides so that I can start my presentation.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll be looking at the psychosocial care and support for adolescents in families. So we want to look at how the family can support and care for adolescents whilst living with them at home. So this will be the outline of my presentation. We will look at who an adolescent is. Then we'll look at having adolescents in families. Then we would look at problems that are faced by adolescents as they are in the family and the kind of psychosocial support and care that families can give for our adolescents so that they can have a very good quality of life to achieve their dreams and their career aspirations. So as it has rightly been defined, the WHO defines an adolescent as any person between the ages of 10 and 19 years. And when you look at literature, adolescents can also be seen as teenagers. And of course, they start from 13 to 19 years. And we call them teenagers because their number ends 15. So like 14, 15, 16, 17 are all seen as adolescents. So when we say adolescents, it is the period between childhood and adulthood. That point where the individual is neither a child or is neither an adult is the period of adolescence. And during this period, you realize that they go through a lot of changes. These changes can be biological, can be social, can be emotional, and even developmental as they grow. And we want to look at the social life of the adolescent. You realize that most of the time, they spend majority of their period or time in schools. And in the course of their life, they want to feel independent. That is, they want to feel autonomous. So it's like they want to decide for themselves. Mommy says this, daddy says this. No, this is what I want. And oftentimes, they are also influenced by their peers. So you realize that maybe during Valentine's Day, their friends will be getting gifts from their either boyfriends or girlfriends, and they would also be wanting to get all these kinds of gifts. Because their friends are doing it, they have to also feel accepted. And relying on their friends or peers becomes an important part of their life. So you realize that though they are even teachers in schools or they have their parents, they will most of the time discuss issues with their friends because they can relate and identify themselves with their friends. Oftentimes, even if the child or adolescent should tell the parent or a teacher about an issue, the kind of response that may come out from the teacher may disturb him or her. But of course, if he tells the friend will tell him or her things that he or she would appreciate. And during the life of adolescents, they want to be loved, where they want romantic relationships and they want sexual relationships, because at that point in time, they are fully grown and they start having a lot of hormones in them. And they think that they are adults and that at home, parents should not correct them because they know it all. So in our Ghanaian setting, we have so many types of families where adolescents can be found. We have it in the nuclear family. This is where we have the mother or the father and the adolescents. Sometimes there could be more than one or two adolescents in the family. And we also have the extended family where it goes beyond the mother and the father. This is where maybe the adolescent is found in a compound house or in a house where the family is staying together with the nuclear family, that is a family house. Or the adolescent can also be found in a single parenting family where he or she is being taken care of by the mother or the father, not both parents. Then we also have the adoptive family where the adolescent has been adopted by a family, a separate family, and that family is neither the extended family or the nuclear family. Then we also have the step family. This is where different people, maybe the father has a daughter, then brings the daughter to marry a different woman as the wife. So now the adolescent or the child must accept and appreciate the other woman as the mother. Then we have grandparent family. In our Ghanaian culture, we really admire and respect our grandparents. So most of the time, we realize that adolescents would like to spend most of their time with their grandparents. When I was growing up, I always want to go to my grandfather's house. But when I go there, I get sweets. They don't beat me. They give me things I enjoy. So these are kinds of families that may be available that adolescents may be found in these families. And when they are in these families too, they have a role that they play. They could help in cooking, they could help in sweeping, they could help in other things that may be expected of them in the family. So living with adolescents at home, there are some things that we have to know. We should know that they are not babies, they are not kids, but they are adolescents, and their hormones are developing. So it is that period where their estrogens and their androgens are all developing. And most of the time during this period, there's a lot of pressure from their friends, even from their family, and even from the environment, and even the social media. Yes, currently now, a lot of adolescents are being influenced by the social media. So you see them always on Twitter, on Facebook, on WhatsApp, and the rest, because they want to be accepted by the society. And all these issues may have an impact on their lives. So in terms of the life of the adolescent in the family, we can say that the home environment may have an impact on the life of the adolescent. You realize that children who are raised from certain homes grow up differently than children raised from certain other homes. If a child is raised from a home where the father is always beating the mother, the child learns by observation. So that adolescent will grow up and marry and will also be beating the wife. You realize that most adolescents whose parents or fathers normally give their mothers, we say chop money or pocket money every month, when they grow up and they marry, they also do the same. Yes, because of the home environment within which they grew up in. And sometimes too, there could be parental loss in early childhood, where maybe an unfortunate incident happens, maybe one of the parents dies or something happens. You realize that it affects the adolescent, the life of the adolescent, because most of the time they have not really matured in life to understand certain things like bereavement and death. And when this thing happens, maybe he can even lose both parents. And the adolescent must now go and stay with someone else. And we know what issues could also bring when you are not really living with your biological parents whilst you are growing up. Sometimes too, the child may be faced with physical or sexual abuse, where some parents, it could be the stepfamily or any kind of parent, whether the mother or the father, is always abusing the child physically, or domestic abuse, or even sexual abuse. Maybe the father will always be harassing the adolescent daughter, maybe of the mother, or even sometimes the uncle who is living in the extended family where the adolescent finds him or herself will always be sexually harassing the adolescent. And it tends to affect the life of the adolescent. And even sometimes to parental styles. Some parents are autocratic. Do as I say, don't complain. The way they nurture and interact with their kids in their adolescent stages may also have an impact on their lives and even how they relate and interact with their colleagues. And of course, peer pressure, where friends are always telling them to do this and do that, do this and do that. It also tends to affect their life. So in terms of the parental styles, realize that I talked about the styles of the parents at home. Sometimes I have, as a psychologist, when I interact with adolescents, realize that most of them prefer leaving the house and even staying with their friends. There are some children, even when school is on vacation, they prefer to stay on campus because when they go to the house, there's fire. Daddy is a tiger, mommy is a tiger. There's always problems at home. And when it happens like that, it affects the development of the adolescent. For instance, if the parent is an authoritarian parent, always giving orders, do this or do that, do this or do that, it may create a problem. Sometimes too, you can get a parent who is very, very friendly and he does not really cause problems to the child. And that is a balanced style of parenting. And some parents too, they are uninvolved. So when the child does something at home, whether the child sweeps the room, whether the child does anything good or bad, he doesn't care. I don't care about what you do. Do what pleases you. After all, I brought you to this world. I also have my own problems. Then we also have the permissive parental style where there's like a friendly parent, always giving in. So such a parent will tell an adolescent child that, hey, in this house, do what will make you happy. If you think you want to watch DSTV every day, me, I don't care. And this is a kind of particular style that parents would show in their house. So comparatively, you realize that children and adolescents are different. While a child would like the parent to take the lead, you realize that we put children at our back, then we, the parents, are taking the lead. Adolescents need you to be by their side. So we are all on the same level. We are all what? We are all going. This is how most of them may be thinking. So adolescents in the family, what are some of the issues that they may be battling with or going through if the family system is not good enough, is not friendly enough? One of them is depression. Majority of adolescents may be going through depression because of the kind of issues and things that happens at home. Always there's fight at home, there are problems at home. Daddy does not come home, mommy does not come home. There are always issues. And he'll be thinking of, or she'll be thinking of committing suicide. And even anxiety, fear of the unknown. Hey, what if I'm not able to finish my school? What if I'm not able to get provisions to school? What if I don't get my gari? What if I don't get my shito? What if I do this? And also sometimes too, there's also low self-esteem, because we as parents, sometimes the way we talk to our children when they are adolescents, may affect them. You tell the child that you resemble your father. Look at your head like your father, like son. How different is the head from you, the mother's head? Are they not similar? And you use that to insult the child. And the child's self-esteem may be affected because you brought the child to the world. I remember at Cape Coast Hospital, a certain woman came to my office that the child is a witch because the way the child behaves in the house, the child is a witch. The woman told me her daughter was a witch. I became scared because there's a statement that a cow does not give birth to a frog. Yes, the guys will tell you cow for low flow. So if your child is a witch, then you, the mother, over to you. So the way we talk to our children can affect them. Sometimes too, they'll be going through all forms of hopelessness and sadness because of problems in the family. And they will be socially withdrawn from their friends, sports activities, and social activities. Even sometimes they may think of abusing substances to make themselves happy. And in schools, you realize that they can't concentrate. When we went for the suicide prevention program at Accra Girls, you realize that most of the ladies I interacted with were having problems with concentration because whilst they are learning, they are thinking of issues at home. So the child is in a classroom, but his mind is at home. It's not in a classroom. So when this happens, you realize that most adolescents would always like to stay out of school because when they go to school, they always have bad grades and this affects their performance. We realized that a few years ago, we had cases of suicide. These are all adolescents who committed suicide. This was a lady at KNUST. She's 18 years and she committed suicide because of her exams results. And you can also see this person, also suicide and also peer pressure. So realize that adolescent stage is a stage that children really need support from their family and also from their parents. So in terms of psychosocial care for adolescents in families, this is the focus of my presentation. Where do we start from and where do we head towards? What must we do? We have to start today. As parents, we shouldn't embarrass our children in front of others. You embarrass them in front of others, it creates a problem. In our schools, you realize that even if a child bedwets, the mother would embarrass the child by bringing the mattress to the school. If you bring it to the school, you would think you have really done something for the child to stop the bedwetting. But you go back home and the friends will be teasing your daughter or your son. So as parents, we need not to embarrass our children. And also in terms of punishment, we have to punish the behavior, not the personality. So whatever the child has done, and of course, at this point in time, they are in their teenage years. So you can talk to them and they would listen and they would change their behaviors. Yes, but if you want to punish them, there was a case that I was handling recently, and a mother wanted to punish the child. In fact, he was around 10 years old. Then the mother mashed Pepper. He mashed Pepper and put it under the private part of their daughter. And I was asking myself, you, this mother, if you put it at your place, would it pain you? And you put pepper at your daughter's private part for her. This punishment is very, very bad. So we should even know how we punish our adolescents. And also, we shouldn't insult them and curse them. If you tell your adolescent child that you will suffer, no problem. If he suffers, you also will suffer because he will not be able to give you money in future when you are old, or even take care of you and your family. And also in terms of the care, we shouldn't be comparing our children with others. Every child is different and every child matures at a different pace. Yes, even all our hands are not the same. There are some children who may not be performing well in junior secondary school, but when they get to secondary schools, they will be shining. Even some even perform well at university. So you shouldn't compare your child. Every child is different. We should also show them love and care for them. If you don't show them love and care for them, you realize that others will show them love and care. That is where they start having boyfriends and girlfriends and peer pressure influencing them. And also in the family too, parents must respect their decisions as children, as adolescents, because though they are not fully grown adults, they can also decide. So whatever decision they want to embark on, you have to advise them, show them the negative aspect of the decisions and the other aspect of it. And as parents living with adolescents too, we should not impose our role on them. When I went to, during the talk at Accra Girls, I realized that most of the children were saying that, Mommy wants me to do science, Daddy wants me to do science, but I want to be a journalist. We should look at the potentials of our adolescent children, advise them and shape them and help them. Because you couldn't do science, you want your child to go and do science so that you become a doctor. Maybe that is not his calling or his or her interest. And let's also tell them positive things. We shouldn't be telling our children negative things, that you will not make it in life, that you will not go to secondary school. All these things can affect their mental health. So the child will go to school and his mind is off in the classroom. And as parents too, we should also know their friends. Yes, if you have adolescents in your family, try and know their friends. Now, because of mobile phones, we can always track some of their conversations, invite them home, know their parents, know what they talk about when they are alone. And also as parents too, we have to give them attention. Now, because of economic issues, most families, most parents are chasing after money day and night. They leave the house at 6 p.m. They leave the house as early as 6 a.m. They come as late as 6 p.m. By the time they come, children are asleep. They don't even see their parents. They are chasing after money. And this is where the danger sets in. Because you are busy chasing after money, you might leave your child in the hands of the house helps. And we know what the house helps can also do to these children and the kind of advice that they can give to them. And in the family too, we should always ask adolescents or our teenagers their needs. They also have needs. So you can ask them, what do you want? What should I buy for you? What do you need for school? It even shows them that you care about their welfare than to always be buying things for them without even seeking their consent. A certain guy was telling me that anytime the father is buying provisions for him, he will buy more gari and more delayed mackerel instead of corned beef, conflicts, and the rest, because the father is always thinking of hunger striking in secondary schools. But the child also needs Cerelac. The child needs Weetabix. The child needs toffees. He needs Chocomilo. He needs Chupa Chups. All these things have to buy for the child. Buy for them, once it's going so that the child will be happy in school. And also the last one is positive self-talk. We have to educate our children on how to say good things for themselves. Even the Bible says that you get what you say. So if you get what you say, then you have to say good things so that you get good things coming on your way. So in the family, we have a very, very important role to play in preparing and in psyching and in counseling our adolescents so that they can achieve their goals and their dreams in life. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Dr. Adami. That was good. I mean, giving us 12 simple pointers that we can do to help our adolescent children. I mean, paying attention to them, asking them of their needs, respecting their advice, as well as managing them. I think one old man gave an analogy that managing adolescents is like frying fish. If you make the oil too hot, you burn it. If it's not too hot, the fish soaks and becomes soggy. If you don't turn it in time, it burns. If you turn it in time, you don't get it the way you want. So it says managing adolescents is tricky like frying a fish. I don't know how you would also look at it. But I guess that linking all the presentations so far, I think it's good. We know that neglect is not good. It impacts negatively on our adolescents. And you have given us some support strategies that we can use. And these are basic, you see them every day. You see parents insulting their children in public, cursing them and all that, without knowing how this impacts on their children. I think that is the outcome of what we are seeing. That is the outcome of what we are seeing. And so these strategies are very good. I have a lot of questions to ask, but I'll allow attendees to ask theirs. So I think there's time I would ask behind the closed doors I can ask, but it's good that we allow our attendees to ask some questions. And I have the first question I have here. The first question I have here is coming from Anapa Rahman. I think this question goes to you, Gloria. On age determination of quality of life, are you saying older parents with children with disabilities do not face difficulty and satisfaction? Can you please throw more light on that for him? Gloria, are you there? She's having network issues, I know.
Okay, I don't know why it's very difficult to unmute myself.
Sorry about that.
Yes, so for older parents, the reason why it is somehow easier for them is at least they are a little bit experienced, and being in marriage and having children, they are much more able to handle these issues much better than the younger parents may be in marriage not for so long, and then they may be people who also have their issues, like let's talk about they are now settling down in their life, and they are now settling down in areas of career and all that. So being able to take care of a child who is also disabled comes with a lot more challenge. But for the elderly parents, at least they have been able to stabilize themselves in some areas of their lives. And so it goes much more easier for them when they understand the issue and what they are supposed to do. But before I drop it, I want to say that this is a general saying. It is not always the case, because there are other indicators that can also come in, depending on traits, personality types, and any other kind of issues that the parents themselves may be having. But this is just in general terms. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Gloria. There is another question from and the recopon here, it reads, most modern families are either single parent homes or homes where at least one parent is remarried. Children, therefore, may become pawns in the squabbles between the two sides. How should children manage these challenges, especially when one parent may be validating potential harmful behavior? Dr. Adame, would you take that?
Yes, thank you very much for the question. And you know, in our Ghanaian setting, children or adolescents may not be given that freedom to express themselves. Even if there's an issue at hand and you want to talk, they will tell you that, hey, we are. So it is a big problem, especially if your mother is in a particular behavior that you don't like, or if your father is in a particular behavior that you don't like. Because from what the person was saying, it's like one parent may be validating potentially harmful behavior. For instance, maybe he always comes home late or is always drinking. So if maybe in a nice way, in a humble way, you could maybe talk to your father or mother about it. If he or she doesn't take it lightly or it doesn't stop, you can maybe talk to someone who can come in and talk to any of the parents. You know, I said that in the family, the mother or the father, parents must serve as role models for their kids. So if you, the father or the mother, you are engaged in such a behavior, indirectly you are teaching the child. So in such a situation, in fact, it's a very tough situation for the adolescents, especially if your father is the one taking care of you and that same father is doing something bad. The more you talk about it, it means you not get pocket money to school. So what must you do? Maybe in a humble way, you can talk to him or get someone to also come in to talk to him. And of course, you can tell the person that you beg the person, you shouldn't expose you that you told him or her. But in a nice way, tell your father that what he's doing, of course, could create a problem for him or her, or for the mother. So as I'm saying, the voice that we give to adolescents or children in the family is quite limited. The more you talk about your parents, you might even be stigmatized and to create a problem, especially if maybe mommy and daddy are quarreling or they are fighting and you take a stand. When mommy and daddy are quarreling at home, they would like you to support each of them. So mommy will tell you the story, daddy will tell you the story. The moment you support any of them, you'll be in trouble. The next moment, they'll be in their bedroom laughing, chatting, and the rest. And you'll be the one who will regret. So I advise that in such a situation, maybe in a nice way, when daddy is in a good mood, you can talk to daddy in a very, very humble and polite way, in a respectful way.
Thank you, Dr. Dame. Thank you, Dr. Dame. Dr. May, are you there? May, sorry.
Hi, Dr. Arthur.
I'll get into trouble with you. Okay, now we're talking about neglect. Now, if you don't neglect, what might happen is that you do everything that your kids want. That might end up to pampering. And for me, I have never seen a child who has been pampered and ended well before. If there is one, please show me. Now, how do you balance the two? Not to neglect, but to do as it was. I know that Dr. Dame has a trick there about the parenting style being you need to balance it. But I mean, sometimes you realize that before you realize you are pampering, you are doing everything that the kids want. In this times too, that we have to leave home as early as 5 a.m. and come late. And so the little time they spend with you over the weekend, you can't say no to certain things. And before you realize, they have their own way. They are using strategies. I'm observing that they what is the word? They sometimes pretend as if they are angry and trying to get what they want. So how do we balance the two? Not to neglect, but not to pamper too. May, how do we balance the two?
Okay, for me, I feel that if you're pampering, that's also neglect. You are neglecting your duty as a parent.
Okay, wonderful.
To put structure to guide your child. It's some parents want to be their children's friends, so they neglect that aspect of parenting. And if you don't do that, somebody else will do it. You know, that I mentioned that some parents prop their children in front of TVs or give them their tablets and whatever to do what they want to do so that they do not appear to be neglecting. But it is a form of neglect, you know. So you were asking what to do about that. Well, I just wanted to say something to what Dr. Dami said. When children find it difficult to come out with these things, they see that there's clearly a gap or a lapse, either in parental care, parent is engaging in behaviors that are maladaptive, what can the child do? Or even the child recognizes that the parent is pampering. There are these coping things that I talked about, you know, withdrawal or some problem-solving behaviors that the children engage in. And that was why I was asking if the mental health authority, or I was suggesting that we put ourselves out there in order to educate some more, the schools, the parents. Many parents do not realize that this is a form of neglect. Many parents, especially in practice, you find that parents will tell you, I give my child everything. And then you have to point out that giving everything is also a form of neglect. What about rules? What about knowing what is moral? What about all these social norms and values that you have to teach your child? So the support is not just material or instrumental. It's supposed to be informational in guiding the child. So to answer the question, what do you do in such a case? What does the child do? What does the parent do when there's some pampering? It's for the school authorities to point out also that this is a form of neglect. Once you mention the word neglect, you're more likely to get a reaction from a parent, especially when they know that they are not keeping their children wanting. But then it's important to recognize that that kind of care is also detrimental to their mental health and eventual quality of life, because we are looking at adolescents who become adults, who will take up social roles, who will be in relationships. What kind of education are you giving them? So you are neglecting them in a way, and some parents don't know that they need to be made aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that response. I'm happy that pampering is a form of neglect. Now, I hope most parents now have a justification not to do so many things for their kids. Sama has raised the hand for quite some time. Let me see if I can allow her to talk, then I read more questions that have come in. Sama, can you hear me?
Yes, doctor. Yes, my name is Steven. Unfortunately, I'm using a friend's machine and his name is Samai. But
so I'm not wrong in calling you Samai.
I'm Steven Asante.
Okay, good. Go ahead,
yeah.
Steven.
Yeah, first of all, my first submission goes to you and the organizers. I think this is a very important seminar for we, especially we, the mental health practitioners. It's not easy for us to get some of such seminars. So I want to find out if there will be a way that we can get some documentation that we can use it to renew our pins as mental health professional. I particularly am a mental health nurse, and I think some of these seminars will help me to be able to register my pin. So maybe we can think about it and see how that can be done so that we can use at the end of the day, if it's via email or anything, we can get some documentation for that. Back to today's presentation, I thanks up for our presenters. They've really touched a lot and they've opened my mind to a course I did in university at Cape Coast about family health and caring. I think is something I want to find out. I think they touched on it, but I want more clarification and more enlightenment on it. How can we discuss more into how a family can make one sick or healthy? I want them to throw more light on that.
Stephen, can you make your question a bit clearer?
Yeah, I want them to throw more light on how the family can either make one healthy or make one sick.
One healthy or make one sick?
Yes.
Are you talking about mental health?
We can relate it to mental health or any other faculty of our health.
Well, with regards to mental health, I think that Dr. May did an extensive submission on that if you neglect, it contributes to some sort of mental and emotional problems for our adolescents. Well, I'll allow her to probably briefly touch on that. And with regards to your first submission about documentation, all our programs are recorded, and when we are done, you can find them on YouTube. So we just have, it will take probably by end of day or tomorrow. So just type in the title into YouTube. This time we are routing it through our Facebook page. So you can get it from that angle too as well. So this is the 7th one. I am pretty sure today is your first time. You are welcome. But all our programs that we've done, we record them and it's out there. People are learning from it. So thank you for asking again. Probably there are others like you who do not know. Okay, so May,
yes,
can you briefly touch on what he asked?
So he wants to know whether neglect can result in illness, sickness.
Illness and sickness, yes.
Yes, Mr. Santi, it can. I mentioned that neglect can come from both rich and poor parenting, or rich and poor parents. If we take the poor parents, for instance, perhaps there's no other way, but to leave the child and go and work. But that child has been abandoned. You may give the child to one caregiver and then tomorrow to another person to take care of the child, and then the next day, that child starts to worry about who will be looking after him next. Every day we'll see the parent go away and then he's given to somebody else, So for instance, personality disorders I mentioned are one very common form of mental or emotional health issue that arises with neglect. This person starts to develop some kind of anxiety when a caregiver is not there. And this may carry on into adulthood so that they are always clinging to the person who is with them. So you find adults like that and you see that it might have come from being neglected or having one caregiver change to another. And then also neglect, obviously, if your parents are not there for you when you want them to, you will become sad. You will become anxious. We talked about the students we saw. We said some of them felt neglected. They were depressed. So when we actually assessed their mental health with tools, as measuring tools, we found high scores of depression, and especially from those who felt that they had been neglected. So yes, Mr. Santi, you can become sick, mentally ill. Depression, anxiety, they are all forms of mental illness, But if you're looking at physical problems, yes, when you neglect a child and then they make friends and they engage in substance abuse, or maybe young girls will find a boyfriend who will take care of them, they can get sexually transmitted diseases. They can become pregnant, attempt to abort, and die. So yes, physically or mentally, emotionally, neglect can affect young people, make them sick. Thank you.
Thank you, May. We have another wonderful contribution from Christian Akum. He says, authoritative parenting generally is preferred. There is a good mix of good dose of pampering and teaching children to be assertive. The parent plays his or her role effectively and efficiently with this. Well, that's true. Mamiata also asked the question, doesn't a parent's income class limit their ability to parent efficiently? Doesn't a parent's income class limit their ability to parent efficiently? I see two hands, Michael and Gifty. I think this will be the last two hands that I would have now. Then we can summarize all that we've discussed and bring the session to an end. We are way past time. So, Dr. Damin, how do you respond to Mami's question? Doesn't a parent's income class limit the ability to parent efficiently?
Thank you very much for the question. It's so fantastic. Wow. So does it mean that if your parents don't have money or they have money, it can affect the way they bring you up? Well, I think it goes beyond that. Because from the presentations that we've done today, and even from what Dr. May said, you realize that pampering a child is even a form of neglect, because the parents should have limits. So I will not say that if the parents or the father or mother has money or is poor or is rich will have an impact on how he parents or takes care of their children. You can have a father who is not, and I don't even know how we would define, at what point in time would we say that the parent is taking good care of the child because he has money, or he is not because he or she financially is poor. We are talking about helping the child, nurturing the child to be a good person in future for him or herself. So whether the father or mother has money should not be a problem or should not affect the upbringing of the child. Because I know children and I know adolescents from rich families who have good characters, who have modeled behavior, and they are doing so well. And those also from, in quotes, poor families are also doing so well. But of course, a child will think that because mommy or daddy is not buying me sweets, not buying things for me, he or she doesn't love me. But I think it goes beyond that. Irrespective of the financial status of the parents, that should not be a stumbling block to how you nurture and how you counsel or how you take care of your child. Because the Bible says that spoil the rod and spoil the child. They didn't say that spend the money and spoil the child. So you can have the money and it will not even spoil the child. It is about also and you train the child. But of course, now there are a lot of rights, domestic violence, and other things. So we always want to be careful on how we use the cane, because some parents may even have problems with the other spouse. I remember there was a child that resembled the father so much. Anytime the mother is beating the child, he beats the child as if he's beating the father because of the resemblance. Yes, but we should make sure that irrespective of our financial status as parents, we will not let it have an impact on how we bring our children. Because there's a statement that too much of everything is bad. As Dr. May said, if you are always pampering your child and the means is no longer there, it will be a problem. So you should make sure that you set rules for the child, train the child the way he should go. And when he grows, he will never depart from it. They didn't say that put money in the child's way, and when he grows, he will depart from it. So I believe that irrespective of the economic status of the parents, there's the duty, because in secondary schools, whether you are rich or poor, we are all in the same dormitory. We use the same dining hall. They will not say that because you are a rich person, your father is rich, your father has a car, get special diets. We are all treated equally by our teachers. So I believe that parents should not use money, or children should not say that because my father or mother is not having money, so I would be disrespectful or I would listen to the advice of my friends. It is very, very bad.
Thank you, Dr. Dami. Now, one final question for you, May. The question is coming from Sarah Foy. How do you handle a 7-year-old who only responds to authoritarian style of parenting, knowing very well it affects their mental health?
So usually you see this happening when even the father is using this authoritarian thing on the mother. So the child has
let me link this question to another one. It says, how do you handle a child who only takes authority from the father and neglects that of the mother? So now link up the two and let's see how that goes.
Yes, so I was saying that we see this happening, and we see this happening when you have the father even doing that with the mother, being authoritarian with the mother. So the child has learned that it's father I obey and not mom. So again, in good parenting, father must give way to mother as well, to also discipline, for the child to learn that it's coming from both. You know, Dr. Odami mentioned the Bible, so I think I'll go back to that. In one scripture, it says, listen then to the discipline of your father and take instruction from your mother. So both parents are playing a role here in bringing up the child, in parenting. But sometimes where you have the mother really afraid of the father, you know, and says, daddy comes home, daddy will do this. Daddy is the one who will punish you. And you are playing good cop. Chances are the child will not recognize the mother as a disciplinarian also, as being part of the parenting team, and just look to the dad. So where we're looking at the mother asking this question, how do you handle a child? The mother and the father must sit down and talk. Let the father understand that there are times when you must let me talk, also discipline the child, so that the child knows that there's two of us in this, bringing you up or parenting you. Thank you.
So thank you. So what it means is that if one of the parents always like to pamper and cannot discipline, the other parent should tell that you should learn to discipline. Is that it?
Yes. Sometimes some parents want to, like I said, play the good cop, and then the other disciplinarian. Yes. You know, that child will learn it. So especially if the mother keeps saying, daddy will come and do this, daddy will come and beat you. Of course, the child will learn.
Mommy playing the good cop and daddy always the bad one.
The bad cop.
No wonder that Mother's Day is celebrated and Father's Day is in the background. I get it. I get the strategy now. I get the strategy now. All right. I think that we've done a pretty good job with this. Michael, we are out of time, but Michael, Gifty, I'm sorry, but we have to do only with Michael. Michael, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Please go ahead with your question. Make it snappy, please.
All right. Thank you very much. A big kudos to Dr. Odami and Dr. May. I want to play a devil advocate for parents. Let us not also forget that sometimes parents go through a lot of stress, and we have this concept of parental burnout because they are trying to do everything for their children. We are talking about the adolescents here, but still things are not going how they expect it to go. So we need to tell parents need to know that the adolescent years are crisis in itself for their children. They are crisis for their children. So they need to know that. And because it is crisis for them, we don't have to further rock the boat that they are in because they are already on turbulent waters. So we don't have to rock the boat. We have to help them. We have to navigate with them. So that is one thing I want us to also take into consideration, because a lot of parents are going through parental burnout. So sometimes it's not about neglect. It is not about only neglect. Their parents are doing everything they have that are influencing their children just out is that adolescence itself is crisis. So we need to get tools to help them out to navigate the crisis. Thank you.
Thank you for your submission. May, would you make a comment to what he said?
Yes, it is true that this is the turbulent period of an individual's life, and parents do face challenges with the rebelliousness and everything that Dr. Mason said from the start. Sometimes, yes, parents can overdo the disciplining bits, which can cause a child to rebel, you know, especially if they see that the parents' requirements are a bit too much. I mentioned earlier that school counselors and the mental health professional body should make this a priority if possible, to help schools identify when a child is going through some kind of crisis. They may not be able to relate well with their parents, and therefore they will move towards their peers who they feel can help them out more. Once we identify such destabilized ones, we can help. The school counselors can help. Parents themselves can get help on how to do a better job, or at least try to put their stress and issues, anxiety away from what they are doing with their children. Because even though you mean well, if you are disciplining your child because you are stressed, that adolescent who already has a shaky self-image is going to form this impression that, okay, you don't like me, you don't like me. And then the situation will get worse. You do have cases like that coming up, where a parent will say, my child is disrespectful, is acting out, is doing all kinds of things. And when you sit down with that young person, you find that, okay, the father or mother may have double standards, which this young adolescent can see. And because they reach that stage of autonomy and they want to make decisions, and you can't kid them anymore with certain things, they will act out. So education, of course, is necessary for parents who are struggling with their adolescents as well. But it's also our responsibility to make them aware that, yes, they can get help.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation, all of you, Gloria, May, and Joe. Now, from all that we've discussed, we know that we cannot neglect them. If you neglect them, it has detrimental consequences. I mean, it affects their academic performance, their social roles, their emotional and mental well-being, all that. It does not. And Dr. Dami listed out 12 ways we can help in taking care of them, aside other stuff. Now, what is your final words? I want you to give your final words to parents out there. We are not, what message would you give, each of you, Gloria, May, and Jonathan, what message would you give to each of us so that we'll talk to other parents out there, other colleagues out there that are having difficulties? What message would you give to us? So let me start with you, May.
Thank you very much, Dr. Arthur. Thank you very much, everybody. Yes, parenting is not easy. We all want our children, adolescents, to have a good quality of life, but we have to know how to do it well. So my colleague, Gloria, talked about the things that make up for good quality of life. Some things are within our reach as parents. And Dr. Odami also talked about how we can listen to our children. So bearing in mind that neglect means that we are not giving them what we can, even when it is in our power to do so, I would like to recommend that all parents, as much as you can, whatever it is that you can, if it's money you don't have, at least you have your time. If it's time you don't have, Be there for your child when you do get home, so that when they need you emotionally, you can offer that kind of support, even if the money isn't there or the instrumental support is not there. But parenting can be done. It was done before your time and it will continue to be done. So we shouldn't give up. I mean, both parents and adolescents all want to enjoy life. And one way of doing that is to knowing what the other wants and trying our best to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. We need to enjoy life, quality of life, enjoyment, happiness, satisfaction, balancing our relationship with ourselves and with others. Gloria, what advice would you give us out there? Hello, Gloria. Hello, Gloria.
Hello.
Yes,
I am
please.
always being told the host is not allowing me to. Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Okay. Thank you very much. And thanks to everyone for being on with us. What I want to say to parents is this: just as the children are having issues today because parents are not able to give out their best, the same applies to most of the parents as well. Growing up as adolescents and young people becoming parents themselves, parents have not been able to get the needed help and the assistance from home and family that they needed to help them build up their ability, that capacity to be able to parent very well. So I tell parents that it is never a shame to ask for help or to seek help when you think things are not going well. When you are having struggles with parenting and you seek help, it doesn't mean that you have failed as a parent. It is rather an indication that you want to do things better and you want to help your children. So parents should seek help. And also, apart from parents alone, all institutions, especially our churches and everything, I think it is high time we start educating people and even people who are now getting married to get them understand some of the nitty-gritties of parenting and issues that are really involved in family life, so that as they are going in, they have some preparation already at hand. So when issues come, they can be able to take care of it. Lastly, I always tell parents that unfortunately, when you see bad behavior, bad character, or anything that you don't like so much in your child, and you accuse them so much, it is not that they have gotten it from anywhere. Most of the time, it starts from home. So we as parents have to be up to the task, helping the children. And if there is a difficulty, if there is challenge, the children are having behavior issues, just as Dr. Odame said, there should be patience, there should be a wisdom in tackling this thing, so that at the end of the day, we can win the children back home. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gloria. Dr. Damin.
Yes, thank you very much. My advice to parents is that we should know as parents that the way we think is different from the way our children think. Because we have experiences in life, but they may not have the experiences in life. That is why if a child is playing with fire, the mother has to go and take the child out from where the fire is because of experience. And charity begins at home. So if the home environment is not good, it's not friendly for the adolescent child or the child in general, it will create problems for the child. I always tell people that your mind is your health. Your mind is your health. What you think about can affect you psychologically. What you think about can have an impact on your well-being. So I will tell parents that they should always empower their children. They should always encourage them. I always say that words can kill, words can heal. The kind of words we use on our children can kill them. The kind of words we use on our children can give them life. So if words can kill and words can heal, I would advise parents that they should make sure that whatever they will tell themselves that they will not be happy, they should not tell their children, because it affects their performance. When the child goes to school, what happened at home? The child might be in secondary school. What happened at home or what daddy or mommy told him or her will still be on his mind, and it will affect the child. So I'll tell parents that they should accept their children as they are, whether the child is good or bad, whatever the child is, whether he's a good person or a bad person, you brought the child to the world. And whichever way you want the child to grow up to be, you can help the child. So I'll tell parents that they should have patience, they should understand their children, and they should always motivate them. They shouldn't judge them, they shouldn't criticize them and be comparing them. You are like your father, you are like your mother, you are like this, you are like that. And who are you as a parent too? You will not say your own. So please, parents, let us be mindful of what we tell our kids, because it can affect their mental well-being. As I said, words can kill and words can heal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Dr. Sarah Bruce, you're welcome from New South Wales. From all that you've said, I mean, I think you said it, Joe, you just said it. Words can heal and words can break, you know. It's, I quickly glanced through your psychosocial care tips, and it's more about what comes out of our mouth to those children, because if you compare them to others, it can, if you don't tell them positive stuff, if you insult them, if you punish them, you do all that. I think that pampering is neglect, but I'm tempted to agree that we need to balance the two. Balancing the two will do the trick. Time is far spent, actually. Far spent. I have another meeting within a couple of minutes. I would ask our Deputy Chief Executive to give her closing remarks, then we can bring the session to an end. Dr. Miss, are you there? Dr. Misa, well, I think she's also is connected somewhere with internet issues. Yeah, so thank you all for coming. I think that you would agree with me that we've had a fruitful discussion. We know clearly, we know that neglecting our adolescent children is detrimental. That is bottom line. It does not help them in any way to come up as responsible adults. It does not help them in any way. So as parents, we need to keep an eye on them, support them, advise them, discipline them. Well, Dr. May, I used your word, right? Discipline them. So we need to balance all of that. That way we can have responsible adults. And they do have some sort of wisdom. They can think. So when we are not fair, we have double standards. They will rebel. That is the reason for some of these rebellious behaviors that they do exhibit with us. But I think that ending with Dr. Dame's submission about the social care, we can really help them. We need to show them love and care. That is bottom line for me. We need to show them bottom line, love and care. You know, letting them know that we are there for them emotionally, physically. Our hustles now makes it difficult to balance it, but we can do our best. And like Gloria said, if it's becoming too difficult, seek help. For me, if it's becoming too difficult, seek help. This has been Dr. Yaramankwa Arthur. I want to thank the panel members, Dr. Jonathan Odamin, May Caesar Wolf, Gloria Aka, for giving us such a wonderful and insightful presentation. I mean, we see them every day. So thank you so much for this information. And to all of you for coming to listen to us. God willing, if you are in good health, Same time next month, we would meet. This is the 7th one. We are not ending now. We would have another presentation. Keep safe. Be on the lookout for each other. Seek for help when it's necessary and when you really need it. Be there to provide support for others, and have a wonderful and blissful weekend. Thank you for coming. Bye for now.